Hello friends, I'm standing here in Peace Plaza in Dayton, Ohio. You can see the greater Miami River behind me and the Dayton skyline. This little plaza was put in place to commemorate a peace conference that took place in November 1995. You see, in 1995, the conflict in Bosnia had come to its worst point. There had been a terrible massacre in the little town of Srebrenica, where 8,000 Muslim Bosniaks were murdered in the forest. That caught the world's attention, and the conflict that had been going on for 4 years unabated finally drew a response from the United States and the European powers. The United States, with NATO support, started bombing missions around the city of Sarajevo to take out the Serb positions that had been there for 4 years, raining death down on the city, the longest siege of a city anywhere in the world since World War II. Now, there was an American diplomat named Richard Holbrooke. He was the Assistant Secretary of State who was tasked by the Clinton administration to try to bring about a diplomatic resolution. Part of that resolution was the bombing, in the hopes that the bombing would cause the Serbs to realize they would not be able to win and should make an effort at a diplomatic solution. For 18 months, Richard Holbrooke carried out what he called shuttle diplomacy, where he flew from capital to capital there in the Balkan Peninsula, meeting with different heads of state, trying to find common ground that would give them at least a starting point for a real peace conference. After 18 months, he accomplished that. He got 3 heads of state from the Balkan Peninsula to come together here in Dayton, Ohio. Most people in Europe have never heard of Dayton. Why was it chosen for this peace conference? Well, Richard Holbrooke said that he wanted a place where it was close enough to the U.S. Capitol that administration officials could easily make the trip and pay visits. But he also wanted a place that could easily be sequestered from the press. He believed that if the hostile leaders could go out and do press conferences and make their case and bash each other in the news, that it would poison the process. So he wanted a place that could easily be sealed off and closed down. Eventually they settled on Wright-Patterson Air Force Base here in Dayton, Ohio. A lot of work was put into a couple of buildings that were about 4 stories high. Each of the combatant groups, the Muslim Bosniaks, the Serbians who were Orthodox in their religion, and the Croats who were Catholic in their religion, they each had a floor, and the 3 heads of state, Tudjman from Croatia, Milosevic from Serbia, and Izetbegovic from Bosnia, each had a floor with their diplomatic retinues. It was understood that nobody was going to leave until there was peace. And so for 21 days, 3 heads of state were sequestered at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base here in Dayton. While the peace conference was going on, Daytonians, normal people here in Dayton who became invested in this desire for the violence to stop, held candlelight vigils outside the Air Force Base, but also in churches all over town, praying that peace would come and the killing would stop. Well, after 21 days, Richard Holbrooke was beginning to lose hope that they'd be able to reach an agreement, because the parties did not trust each other because of all the violence that had happened. He finally set a deadline where he said, if we don't have peace by this time on this morning, the conference is over and everybody goes home. Well, 20 minutes before the deadline, concessions were finally made, specifically by Slobodan Milosevic from Serbia, and the peace conference achieved success. This was a huge accomplishment for the American diplomatic corps and for the groups who came to negotiate the peace. In the end, that peace included ending the violence, laying down the arms, keeping the integrity of the Bosnian borders in place, allowing for free and fair elections supervised by the United Nations, and a 3-pronged government where each of the 3 warring parties, Bosniaks, Serbs, and Croats, would have a president, and each of those presidents would have veto power on each other, and then there were legislatures for each group. Now you could tell this was not an ideal government, but it was the best that could be achieved at the time, and it's the government that's still in place today. It hasn't been perfect. There are still tensions between those groups, but for about 30 years, ever since that peace conference right here in Dayton, Ohio, there hasn't been any killing. So this is the place where it happened. It's one of the few wars in modern times that was ended through diplomacy and not just with the absolute defeat and destruction of a country. So this little plaza here in Dayton has become a really important place to the people who were alive here at the time and who knew that if there was hope for peace in Bosnia, it was going to happen in their city.